Sir, stand up. I'm just sitting here writing. Lower your voice. I haven't raised it. That's not for you to decide. He stayed seated. The notebook remained open on his knee. We had a call. About what? The officer didn't answer. He looked past him instead. You don't belong here. Stand up. Now, at exactly 2:45 in the afternoon. Riverside Park slipped into its usual pause. Parents arrived early and took the same places they always did. A couple leaned against the low fence near the school gate. A woman with a stroller slowed on the gravel path and checked her phone. Someone whistled once, then stopped. Nothing was urgent. Nothing needed attention. On the iron bench beneath the large oak tree, Daniel Harper sat with his legs crossed, a leather-bound notebook resting on his knee. The cover was worn at the corners. He wrote with the same pen he always used, the tip moving steadily across the page. He didn't look up when footsteps passed. He didn't scan the park. He wasn't watching anyone. For 6 years, this had been his routine. The same bench, the same tree, the same half hour before the school bell rang at 3:15. He came early so he wouldn't rush, so his daughter would walk out and see him already there. To the teachers glancing from classroom windows, he was familiar. To the crossing guard near the entrance, he was expected. To the parents who waited every weekday afternoon, he was simply part of the scene. At 2:43, a call was placed. The caller didn't report a crime. There was no shouting, no threats, no mention of a weapon, just a description. A man is sitting on a bench near the school, riding a backpack at his feet. He had been there for a while. 2 minutes later, a patrol car turned toward Riverside Park. Officer Ryan Keller stepped out at the curb. His uniform still looked new, the fabric stiff where it folded. His badge caught the light when he moved. The body camera on his chest activated automatically as he adjusted his vest and started across the grass toward the oak tree. Daniel finished the sentence he was writing. He underlined one word, lightly, then lifted the pen. He capped it, slid it into the notebook's spine, and closed the cover. Only then did he look up. Is there a problem? He asked. I need to see some identification. Daniel glanced past the officer. Parents stood where they had been moments earlier. A child laughed somewhere near the path. Nothing else had changed. May I ask why? We had a report of suspicious activity. What activity would that be? That's what I'm here to determine. Keller said, ID. Daniel rested the notebook against his leg. I'm sitting on a public bench, writing. I do this every weekday while I wait for my daughter to get out of school. Keller shifted his weight forward. He looked down at the backpack near Daniel's feet, then back at his face. A lot of people wait around schools for some reason, he said. Daniel adjusted his grip on the notebook before responding. Officer, am I being detained? Or am I free to go? I'm investigating. So, am I being detained? I didn't say that. Then am I free to leave? Keller didn't answer. He looked past Daniel again, as if checking something beyond him, then back down. I'm asking you for identification, and I'm asking what law I'm suspected of breaking. The officer's jaw tightened. I received a call. That's enough. A call about what? Keller took a half step closer without responding. The distance between them closed. Not because Daniel moved, but because the space had been claimed. Daniel placed the notebook into his backpack. He zipped it halfway, then stopped, as if reconsidering, and left it there. I've been sitting on this bench for 6 years, he said. The teachers know me. The crossing guard waved to me earlier. Do you have ID on you? Keller asked. Yes. Daniel reached into his jacket pocket and held the card out between them. Keller didn't take it. The card stayed there, suspended between them, long enough to notice. Then Daniel's hand steadied. Put it away, Keller said. I didn't say you could reach for anything. Daniel withdrew the card and slid it back into his pocket. He didn't comment. Instead, He smoothed the front of his jacket, pressing the fabric flat with both hands. Around them, the park had grown quieter. A jogger slowed near the path. A parent shifted position but didn't leave. "Sir," Keller said, "I'm going to ask you one more time. Do you have identification on you?" Daniel looked up at him. "Yes." "Then why won't you give it to me?" "I didn't say I wouldn't." Daniel replied, "I asked if I was being detained." Keller stared at him longer than before. His hand drifted toward his belt, then stopped there, resting without explanation. The school bell had not rung yet. Daniel stayed seated. The question remained unanswered. Keller didn't repeat the command right away. He stood there instead, close enough now that Daniel could see a faint scratch on the officer's badge. The notebook was no longer in Daniel's hands. It sat half-zipped in the backpack at his feet, exactly where he had left it. "Stand up," Keller said again, quieter this time. Daniel didn't move. "I'm sitting on a public bench," he said, "waiting for my daughter. She gets out when the bell rings." Keller looked toward the school building, then back to Daniel, then down at the backpack again. "Anyone can say that. I'm here every weekday." Daniel said, "Same time. Same place?" Keller nodded once. Not in agreement. Just enough to mark that he had heard the words. He didn't step back. The distance stayed claimed. "I asked for identification," he said. Daniel shifted slightly on the bench. Not to stand. Just enough to straighten his back. "You asked," he said. "You didn't say why. That's not how this works." Daniel paused. Then, evenly, "Then how does it work?" Keller didn't answer. His hand moved closer to his belt. Rested there. Then lifted away again. He glanced past Daniel, toward the parents who had stopped pretending not to watch. "I don't care how long you say you've been here," he said. "Right now. You're refusing to comply." "I'm asking a question," Daniel replied. "That's not the same thing. To me, it is." Daniel took a breath. Not deep. Not dramatic. Just enough to reset. "Officer," he said, "I'm not engaged in any criminal activity. I haven't been given a reason to produce identification." Keller's mouth tightened. "That's not for you to decide." Daniel nodded once, as if acknowledging the sentence rather than agreeing with it. "Then I need you to decide," he said. "Am I being detained?" Keller didn't answer. He shifted his stance. Feet slightly wider now. The body camera sat squarely between them, unmoving. "I received a report," he said. "A report of what?" Keller hesitated. Just long enough to notice. "Suspicious behavior." Daniel looked around the park. Parents. Strollers. A jogger standing still now, watching openly. "What behavior?" he asked. Keller didn't respond. Instead, he said, "Do you have identification on you?" "Yes." "And you're refusing to give it to me?" "I didn't say that." "Then give it to me." Daniel paused. Then he spoke carefully. "I'm a federal judge." The words didn't change Keller's posture. If anything, his expression flattened. Keller let out a short breath that might have been a laugh. "Sure you are." Daniel didn't react to that. He continued, evenly, "My name is Daniel Harper, United States District Judge." Keller shook his head once. "Judges don't dress like that," he said. "They don't hang out like this either." Daniel remained seated. "My chambers are downtown," he said. "You can verify that with one phone call." Keller didn't reach for his radio. He didn't look away. "People lie to cops all the time," he said. "And judges don't." Daniel replied. The words hung there briefly, not because they were loud, but because nothing followed them. Keller stepped closer. Close enough now that Daniel had to tilt his head slightly to keep eye contact. "You know what I think?" Keller said. "I think you got caught doing something you shouldn't be doing. I'm sitting on a bench. Daniel said, "Waiting for my daughter." Keller's eyes flicked toward the school again. "Stand up," he said. Daniel didn't move. Instead, he reached down slowly and closed the backpack fully. He set it upright beside his foot, then placed both hands on his knees where they could be seen. "I'm not resisting," he said. "I'm not running. I'm not doing anything except sitting here." Keller's hand moved to the cuffs on his belt. "Last chance," he said. Daniel looked at the camera on Keller's chest. Not dramatically. Just directly. "Remember this moment," he said. "Everything after this is your decision." Keller didn't respond. He reached forward and grabbed Daniel's arm. Keller's grip wasn't guiding. It was claiming. Daniel's shoulder turned first. Then his feet followed. Half a step behind the motion. The bark of the oak scraped against his palms as his hands were pulled behind him. He didn't struggle. He didn't pull away. The movement stopped only when there was nowhere else to go. "I told you who I am," Daniel said. His voice stayed level. "And I told you I don't believe you," Keller replied. The cuffs closed around Daniel's wrist. The sound was small. Metallic. Final. A phone camera clicked on somewhere behind them. Then another. Then several more. "He's here every day," someone said from the path. "You don't need to do that," a woman added. Keller didn't turn around. He tightened the second cuff and stepped back, just enough to look at what he'd done. Daniel stood facing the tree, hands restrained, jacket pulled slightly out of place. He shifted his weight once, testing nothing, just settling. "You just handcuffed a federal judge," he said quietly. "In a public park." Keller leaned in. "You're not a judge," he said. "You're exactly who I thought you were." The movement around them stopped. Parents stood still. A jogger halted near the path. Someone lowered a phone, then raised it again. The school bell rang. The sound cut through the park the way it always did. Doors opened. Children spilled out in small groups. Backpacks bouncing. Voices overlapping. Daniel turned his head as far as the cuffs allowed. He saw her before she saw him. Lily stepped through the gate with her backpack slung over one shoulder. She scanned the park the way she always did. Quick and practiced. Her eyes landed on the oak tree. On the cuffs. On her father. She stopped. Then she ran. "Daddy," she said, her voice breaking as she pushed past adults. "Lily." "Wait," Daniel said quickly. "Stay right there." She didn't. She reached him and grabbed his arm as best she could around the restraints. "Why is he doing this?" she asked. "What did you do?" Keller froze. He looked at Lily. Then at Daniel. Then at the cuffs. That's your daughter?" he asked. "Yes," Daniel said. "Everything I told you was true." The crowd shifted. Someone stepped closer. "That man's her father," a woman said. "I've seen him here for years." Keller took a step back. His hand dropped away from his belt. Sirens approached from the street. A patrol car pulled up. Then another. Doors opened. Radios crackled. Sergeant Michelle Lawson stepped out and took in the scene in one sweep. The crowd. The phones. The child. The man in cuffs against the tree. Her eyes were fixed on Daniel. "Officer Keller," she said, sharp and controlled. "Remove the handcuffs." "Now," Keller hesitated, then fumbled with the keys. The cuffs opened. Daniel stepped forward slowly and rubbed his wrists. Not for comfort, but because the cameras were still there. Lily pressed into his side. He wrapped an arm around her shoulders. "I'm sorry," Lawson said. Quieter. "Are you injured?" "No," Daniel replied. Another vehicle arrived without lights. A man in plain clothes stepped out and showed his badge briefly. "Captain Andrew Brooks," he said. "Internal Affairs." The atmosphere shifted without comment. "Body camera." Brooks said, "Preserve it." No edits. Keller unhooked the camera and handed it over. Dispatch recordings. Radio traffic. All related calls. Brooks continued. Secure everything. Keller stood where he was. No one addressed him now. Within hours, the body camera was logged into evidence under a federal case number. The transfer receipt listed the time, the officer's name, and the condition of the file as unaltered. Within days, the dispatch audio, radio traffic, and civilian phone footage were entered into the same record, each stamped and cross-referenced before review. The hiring file followed, evaluation reports, written warnings, notes that had been acknowledged and then ignored. The case left the park. The trial came later. The verdict followed. The sentence was read aloud and written down. Years. Not moments. Daniel Harper was not there when it happened. On weekday afternoons, he still goes to Riverside Park. He sits on the same iron bench beneath the same oak tree. He writes in the same leather-bound notebook while he waits for the school bell. The record remains. If you notice the shift once the camera, the crowd, and the child entered the frame, leave a comment. Share this story if you think others should see how authority behaves when it believes no one is watching. Subscribe to Power Abuse Stories for more cases told through what was done, not what was said.